Sup, you beautiful bastards. Hope you're having a fantastic Tuesday. Welcome back to the Philip DeFranco Show, and let's just jump into it. And the first thing we're going to talk about today is a bit of outrage news that then connects to our much larger final story. And at the center of this initial outrage and controversy, you had Jeremy Scott, creative director of Moschino, who was posting photos on Instagram showing women with blue, red, or yellow skin, this including models like Gigi Hadid, Kaya Gerber. And initially, the Instagram post had the caption, "The only thing illegal about this alien is how good she looks. Gigi Hadid stars in my new Moschino campaign." And in response to this post, you had a lot of people pushing back saying that this was tone deaf. One user saying this caption is disgusting, you're profiting on the suffering of people escaping persecution, poverty, and death. Another saying all you did was paint thin, cis, white women different colors. Truly groundbreaking. Others adding that it was in terrible taste. And seemingly in response to all of this, Jeremy then went in and changed the caption, writing, "What is an alien? The concept of my ad campaign is to bring attention to the US administration's harsh stance towards illegal aliens. I painted the models in my show in this campaign as a way to open a discussion on what exactly an alien is. Are they orange, blue, yellow, green? Does this matter? They are our friends, neighbors, coworkers, relatives, and people we love." And it appears that if people were familiar with Jeremy Scott, they would have understood that initial message. And that's because back in February, he did essentially the same thing. At a fashion show, models had their skin painted there, and even there in a statement, he pointed to the president as the reason for why he did this in his show. And as far as my personal takeaway from this story, I think that unfortunately this has become a semi-normal thing. People having an immediate reaction, immediately swinging on someone rather than asking a question first. The, I guess, pun intended, alienation of an ally or a potential ally. Because tensions are high, people are more divided than ever, people assume the worst in others. And as easy as it would be to just kind of make fun of this situation for another minute, I'm just left really sad about it. And I don't just mean with this story, I mean with the current state of debate and discourse in this country. And the thing is, it might even be narrow thinking to just say country. But I don't know, actually, a question I want to pass off to you. Do you see this sort of situation as the normal? Is it something that you just see online, or do you see things like this in your everyday life with the people that you're around? I'm intrigued. Let me know in those comments down below. Then very quickly, I wanted to mention an update around the TanaCon disaster story we talked about yesterday. It turns out one of the key parts of Tana Mongeau's, Bella Thorne's, Michael Weiss, and several other people's story may not be true, or at least the police do not believe it to be true. Yesterday we featured several proclamations from Tana, Bella, and many others saying that, 20,000 people showed up. Right? They were prepared for 5,000 people, not 20,000. That's where the problem was. Well, according to a press release from the City of Garden Grove Police Department, the police supervisors on scene estimated the crowd was between 4,000 to 5,000 people. Social media sites said the crowd was 20,000, and this was not accurate, adding the police officers were able to disperse the crowd after approximately 60 to 90 minutes. Previously stating that TanaCon had sold approximately 4,000 tickets at the time of the event. And so it appears that this press release from the police pokes a massive hole in the defense of why things went wrong. And additionally, the press release gave us more insight into what was happening inside, saying the hotel ballrooms where the event was scheduled could hold a maximum of 1,150 people. The organizers planned to move the crowd in and out of the venue to allow all attendees the opportunity to participate in the event. As the crowd moved through the venue, they were herded out into the lobby after a short time to allow other fans into the ballrooms. The people moved into the lobby were upset and refused to leave. As the crowd grew in the lobby, hotel staff and event security could not gain compliance from the fans. Hotel staff said the crowd became unruly and began climbing on furniture, adding hotel staff locked themselves in their offices and called the police department for assistance. Approximately 20 police officers and several supervisors responded to the scene. The hotel ballrooms and lobby were over capacity, and one 14-year-old female was injured by the crowd. The female was taken to a local hospital for minor injuries. But still, one of the most important pieces with this story is the discrepancy between 4,000 to 5,000 like the police said and 20,000 like Tana and others said. Because if the police report is 100% accurate, that greatly changes the situation. And what I mean there is, based off of the things we talked about yesterday, it was guaranteeing that it would be a failure. But if the numbers here from police are accurate, they were just ill-equipped for even the size of the event that they had planned for. Which I will say, to me, that's even more troubling and ridiculous. And of course, if you have any new thoughts here compared to yesterday, let me know. But from that, I want to share some stuff I love today. And today in Awesome, brought to you by BetterHelp.com/DeFranco. BetterHelp, if you don't know, is the fantastic place and service where you can get affordable private online counseling. And you get access to licensed, trained, experienced, accredited psychologists, marriage and family therapists, clinical social workers, and board licensed professional counselors. And all you've got to do is go to BetterHelp.com/DeFranco. You fill out a questionnaire, you get matched with a counselor, and you could start counseling today. And really leaning into the affordable aspect, if money is an issue, you can see if you're eligible for a financial aid discount. And it truly is a fantastic service I cannot recommend enough. So if that does sound interesting to you, you want to try it out, just go to BetterHelp.com/DeFranco. And the first bit of awesome today, you might not be familiar, we have this pay subscription service called DeFranco Elite. Patreon's the back end right now. But on there, subscribers get early content, we test a lot of content, and today we're making one of those tests public. It is a show based around the DeFranco Now app that we released. I uploaded the video to the vlog channel as just kind of a bonus video, so if you want to watch it, this one's completely free, I'll link down below, but also just keep in mind, These are just test videos. Full graphic packages, the whole feel, it's not fully refined yet, but I just wanted to share it. Then we got the honest trailer for Tomb Raider and Pacific Rim Uprising. We had Bon Appetit attempting to make gourmet Lucky Charms, just out there doing the Lord's work. We had Real Life Lore explaining how the geography of the United States is actually weirder than you think. We had Michelle Keegan reading mean comments. Then we got a trailer for The Predator. And if you want to see the full versions of everything I just shared, the secret link of the day, anything at all, links as always are in the description down below. Then in Don't Be Stupid news, we look to Indiana. It appears that that winner of an FBI agent we talked about in Colorado that did the backflip, dropped his gun, accidentally shot someone, he has competition for most idiotic gun story. It feels like at this point we might as well just get trophies involved. And this specific story comes to us from Fishers, Indiana, in an IKEA store. Reportedly, an unnamed customer sat down on a couch, to test it out. They got up. It appears they did not have that weapon secured because, it fell out. Then reportedly around 2 p.m., a child found a special surprise wedged between two cushions, a handgun. A handgun that child then reportedly fired at least once. Now, luckily, no one was hurt. Police were called to the scene, but no charges have been filed. IKEA released a statement after the incident offering their apologies to the child and family, saying the store has regular safety walks, audits which happen before, during, and after opening hours, adding that IKEA has a no weapon policy in our locations to prevent exactly these types of situations. We also saw Sheriff Tom Weger issue a statement.
You need to make sure that if you're going to carry a firearm that you keep it under your control at all times.
Oh, I hate that's a thing that even has to be said. Don't be treating your gun all willy-nilly. And as far as if the owner of the gun will face any charges, right now it appears most likely not. And my favorite explanation as to why not comes from Guy Relford, gun expert and attorney, who said, being a knucklehead is not a crime in Indiana or in most places. Also adding that the most severe crime that the gun owner could be charged with is criminal recklessness. But still most likely not, because those charges require that a person knowingly, intentionally, or recklessly commit an act. And also to those then asking, well, what about IKEA? They said they had a no gun sign. True, but it turns out there is no law in Indiana that says violating the policy is illegal. And so I guess if it turns out that is the end of the story, I guess the moral of the story is luckily that child is a shitty shot. Is that the lesson we learned here? Oh, but also actually, while I have you on this kind of story, a genius of an FBI agent in Colorado that did the backflip, he was just charged with 1 count of second-degree assault. And so actually maybe that's the lesson we learned from these two stupid stories. If you do something incredibly stupid, also get lucky and no one gets hurt because of your stupid decision? That doesn't feel like a great one, but that's where we're gonna end this. Then in a quick update that kind of goes along the lines of that statement of it is not illegal to be a knucklehead, you can also then pair that with asshole. You might remember that story we talked about a while ago where you had those 5 teenagers in Florida filming a man in a pond. They were mocking the man, laughing, just watching him drown. And the person in the water who died was later identified as a 31-year-old disabled man by the name of Jamel Dunn. And since then, it's now been announced that even though none of them went to help the man, no one called the police, there will be no charges. Seminole Brevard State Attorney Phil Archer saying, today we are announcing our decision not to criminally charge 4 juveniles and 1 adult for their failure to provide assistance in the tragic drowning death of Jamel Dunn. Adding, I know that everyone was sickened by the callous disregard for human life exhibited by these young people. We can only hope that this was an isolated and rare circumstance that will never happen again. Unfortunately, Florida law does not address this behavior, and we are ethically restrained from pursuing criminal charges without a reasonable belief of proving a crime beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt. And so a question I want to pass off to you here is, do you think that there should be a law in place that, not necessarily that you would have to like go into the water because of course there's documented risk there, right? Would be heroes drowning because the person they're trying to save is panicking. But I mean that as someone would have the legal obligation to try and contact police if they had the means. Do you think that's common sense, it's good, or no, it's bad, maybe it's a slippery slope? Let me know what you think. And then let's talk about the Supreme Court making big moves today. And first up here we have Trump's travel ban, which there have been 3 versions of. Some people have called it a Muslim ban. And here defenders of the travel ban say it is not appropriate to call it a Muslim ban because it only affects 5 of 49 Muslim majority countries. Additionally, the ban also includes North Korea and Venezuela. But on the other side of this, you have people saying no, it is a Muslim ban because it is targeting Muslim countries. And most notably, they point to 2015 when then candidate Donald Trump was thinking up the first version of the travel ban, and he said this.
Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on.
So there was that. And to refresh your memory, travel ban number 1 banned entry into the United States for 90 days for citizens of Iraq, Iran, Syria, Yemen, Libya, Sudan, and Somalia. Additionally, it delayed refugee resettlement from these countries for 120 days, as well as banning indefinitely Syrian refugees. And many of the people that saw this as horrible and discriminatory did so not only because of the target countries, but because the order also gave preference to religious minorities like Christians and Muslim countries. Then in March of 2017, we saw Trump travel ban 2.0. There was an executive order, they amended, they made some changes, but then eventually we got to travel ban 3.0. And the reason I'm hopping to 3.0 is that is what the Supreme Supreme Court ruled on today. And here, the ban list was North Korea, Venezuela, Chad, Libya, Syria, Iran, Yemen, and Somalia. And here we saw different policies concerning each country, but one of the almost constants is that immigrant visas from all countries excluding Venezuela were suspended indefinitely. And along the way, there were fights and changes. Back in October, we saw a U.S. district judge out of Hawaii rule that the ban should be put on hold. This to allow the courts to decide the constitutionality of the ban. But soon after, in November, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that the ban could go into effect, but with a major exception for individuals with formal and documented relationships with U.S.-based people and entities such as universities and businesses. And then in December, the Supreme Court ruled that the policy could go into effect, but they overturned a key part of the appeals court decision, ruling against automatically allowing exceptions for people with bona fide relationships with U.S. people or entities. Then in April, we saw Chad removed from the travel ban list. And all of that brings us to today because the Supreme Court has ruled 5-4 in favor of the third travel ban. And the vote was largely along partisan lines, with the court's more conservative justices ruling in favor of the ban and the court's more liberal justices ruling against it. And with this decision, we saw Chief Justice John Roberts writing the majority opinion, and he primarily relied on the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965. And that law specifically states, whenever the president finds that the entry of any aliens or of any class of aliens into the United States would be detrimental to the interests of the United States, he may, by proclamation and for such period as he shall deem necessary, suspend the entry of all aliens or any class of aliens as immigrants or non-immigrants, or impose on the entry of aliens any restrictions he may deem to be appropriate. And one of the other standouts was that Roberts also addressed the criticism that this was a Muslim ban, this because of the president's previous tweets and statements, saying, plaintiffs argue that this president's words strike at fundamental standards of respect and tolerance in violation of our constitutional tradition. But the issue before us is not whether to denounce the statements. It is instead the significance of those statements in reviewing a presidential directive. In doing so, we must consider not only the statements of a particular president, but also the authority of the presidency itself. And interestingly enough, even though Roberts voted the way that the president was hoping it would go, he seemingly also jabs at the president, saying just days after the attacks of September 11th, 2001, President George W. Bush went to an Islamic center to implore his fellow Americans, Muslims and non-Muslims alike, to remember during their time of grief that the face of terror is not the true faith of Islam, and that America is a great country because we share the same values of respect and dignity and human worth. And he then followed up that story by saying, yet it cannot be denied that the federal government and the presidents who have carried its laws into effect have, from the nation's earliest days, performed unevenly in living up to those inspiring words. And then on the other side, we look to the dissenting opinion from Justice Sonia Sotomayor. And here, from a legal perspective, she cites the Establishment Clause, which forbids government policies from respecting an establishment of religion. And here she cites several examples from Trump's campaign speeches to television interviews where he specifically targets Muslims as dangerous, bringing up examples such as when Trump compared his ban proposal to Japanese-American internment during World War II. Another, he talked about a U.S. general killing Muslims with bullets dripped in pig's blood. And she goes on to write, ultimately what began as a policy explicitly calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States has since morphed into a, quote, proclamation putatively based on national security concerns. But this new window dressing cannot conceal an unassailable fact. The words of the president and his advisors create the strong perception that the proclamation is contaminated by impermissible discriminatory animus against Islam and its followers. And as of right now, this is where we are with the ban. We saw Trump celebrating the 5-4 vote this morning on Twitter, tweeting Supreme Court upholds Trump travel ban. Wow. But also a kind of important note there, in theory, the fight over the travel ban is not technically over. And keep in mind, I'm saying technically. And that's because what they're doing here is they're sending the case back down to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals to rule on the merits of the ban. Also, another thing to keep in mind is this is just one of now several wins that the Supreme Court has given conservatives. There was that Christian Baker story we talked about earlier this month. Yesterday, we saw the Supreme Court kind of sidestep and punt a partisan gerrymandering case. Additionally, today, we saw the Supreme Court rule against California, specifically saying the state went too far when it was requiring anti-abortion pregnancy clinics to notify women that abortion is an option. California was saying that these centers are misleading women, and so they were legally requiring these centers to mention that abortion is available. But the Supreme Court has now said that that likely violates the First Amendment. And like I said, that is where we are right now, and there will be more coming. And as far as how things will go from here on heavily contested issues, you really just have to look to Justice Anthony Kennedy. Right now, he is the swing vote in the Supreme Court, and even on decisions where he's gone conservative, he has kind of issued warning shots. With the Christian Baker case, you might remember that Kennedy has said that if there were similar cases that came up in the future, that they could go the other way. Additionally, even though he voted in favor of the Trump travel ban, he wrote, although the policy is legal, an anxious world must know that our government remains committed always to the liberties the Constitution seeks to preserve. But with all of that said, I do now want to pass the question off to you. What are your thoughts on the travel ban decision, as well as any of the others that we kind of briefly talked about? And also remember, this is the Philip DeFranco Show. It is not just a show, it is a conversation. So whether it be this last one, the first one, anything in between, let me know what you're thinking in those comments down below. And that's where I'm going to end today's show. Also, while you're at it, if you like this video, like what I'm trying to do on this channel, hit that like button. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss these daily videos, which actually, if you did miss the last Philip DeFranco Show, you want to catch up, click or tap right there to watch that. Or if you haven't yet, I highly recommend recommend you watch our new test video. You can click or tap right there. But that said, of course, as always, my name's Philip DeFranco. You've just been filled in. I love yo faces, and I'll see you tomorrow.